I'm welcoming you in, and I hope that those of you who get to watch the video enjoy it, and those of you who tried to get into class that couldn't, I love you, and we'll work it out later. So today's practice, short one, 30 minutes, and range of motion combined with strength equals increased mobility. So process that for a second. Range of motion combined with strength equals increased mobility. And where we have a great range of motion is where we typically have some good strength, at least enough strength to support range of motion without pain. So if you take your left arm and you turn it in and you turn it out and you turn it in and turn it out, then hopefully you are pain-free in this pretty easy range of motion right here. And if we were to take that out and up a little bit, what happens when you start to lose range of motion in your joint is you'll start to compensate, which means you'll start to use other parts of your body to do the same range of motion that you could easily do down here. So if you take it up even higher, you may start to find range of motion where you're going to start to compensate and twist and turn. So the higher up the arm goes, people tend to kind of do some strange things. So we're going to work on a range of motion with spirals. Your arm and your legs both have a particular movement pattern we could call inward spiral or outward spiral. And so if you take your arm out and down and you try to turn from where the shoulder is and turn your whole arm in until your thumb goes down, that's an inward spiral. And if you turn it all the way up, 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 and see if you can get your thumb from the root of the shoulder. So pay attention because your forearm can move much greater range of motion than your shoulder can because your forearm is designed to turn. So can you do it from your shoulder joint without compensating up here or up here or up here? So internal spiral, external spiral. The challenging thing about the arms is when we take the arm up overhead, the spirals start to, the way the shoulder blade needs to come onto your back, it starts to change. And so when you turn the arm in with the arm in the overhead plane, it will actually bring your shoulder blade onto your back. If you turn your arm out with your arm in the overhead plane, it will pull your shoulder blade away from your back body. If you bring it down, you'll notice that if you turn this arm bone inward inner spiral, the shoulder blade will round off your back. And if you outer spiral, the shoulder blade will pull onto your back. So when we have movements in this plane, the movement that's typically will pull the shoulder blade off the back tends to pull it onto the back. And if you're up here, and the movement that typically would pull the shoulder blade onto the back will actually move it away. And so when we come out to the side plane, we get inward spiral pulls the shoulder blade onto the back. Outward spiral tends to pull it. No, I was wrong. Pull it off, pull it on. Pull it off, pull it on. And then up here, it pulls it on with inward spiral and off. Not that all this has to make logical sense right now. And since we've done a lot with the one arm, let's just talk to the other, inner, outer. So each of your shoulder joints, the glenohumeral joint, will have some varying degree of different mobility being range of motion and strength combined. And can you take those inner spiral and outer spirals and without compensating to get the arm up overhead? And the greater strength and range of motion, the more freedom you're going to have in a particular joint without pain or compensation distortion. So when you pull the external rotation, that means the upper arm bone rotates out away from the heart and the shoulder blade squeezes onto your back. That's outer spiral. Keep the outer spiral as you lift the arm. Keep the outer spiral as you lift up to a high V. And then if you take the arm straight up overhead with outer spiral, you should notice the shoulder blade wants to wing off your back a little bit, like the bottom part of your shoulder blade. Now, if we come back out to that high V and internally spiral from the root of the shoulder until the whole arm turns away, and then bring it up over your head, there's a greater chance that the shoulder blades stayed snug onto your back body. Now, if the shoulders are really tight and you get your arm up in the overhead plane and you start to get neck pain, that's a sign to you that you don't have enough mobility, meaning strength and range of motion, to find an end range through a joint without discomfort. And so we must then do things like bend elbows and modify the closing range so that you can figure out where your healthy range of motion exists. And we'll just take a little process, a practice to talk about the most free and mobile joint in your human body, and how do we create more strength so that you can have more mobility. Draw your hands to your heart, buddy. Give yourself a moment to perhaps digest or process what's just been offered forth, a lot of empirical knowledge. Some of it made sense, some of it just right over your head. And some of it will take time. Increasing mobility and range of motion is not something that happens usually in a 30-minute practice. And take a nice deep, full, long inhale. Let that be met with a nice long exhale. And one Om, deep breath. All right, let's come to standing. My buddy. And since we were seated for quite some time, we'll just take some standing cows and cats. So hands on your knees and gently press the upper thigh bones back, pull the heart forward, lift the gaze, and then round it in. And even here, where you've placed your hands on your legs, you can choose to outer spiral by turning the hands out, or if you turned your hands in, it was probably more of an internal spiral. Then you can really feel the difference here, where hands come on the back. Try turning the hands in. Shoulder blades will pull off the back body. It'll be harder for you to squeeze your shoulder blades onto your back. Now, if you turn your hands out, you should feel more of a snug feeling up in the back space of your heart. And not that one's better or worse, it's just when do we use a certain action for a certain reason, and knowing when that difference makes a difference. So stand on up. We'll take a block between your upper inner thighs, a block between your shins. If you don't have blocks, well, you can look on my website and find one. A prop at the top of the Hey Marvelous page. You'll find props. Squeeze the bottom block with your shins. Move the upper block back with your upper inner thigh strength. Mindful that you're keeping the knees slightly bent so that you are using the upper femur bones and not your knee joint. Keeping shins in, thighs back, anchor the tailbone down so that you firm your lower abdominals. And we'll take your, I'll mirror you, take your right hand across your body and squeeze that shoulder blade onto your back. Now externally rotate the left arm and sweep it across your heart. And notice that in so doing, you probably lifted your shoulder up. And so drop the shoulder down and try to keep your arm straight, palm up, palm up, palm up. There we go. And now from the shoulder, lift your arm, and it might not go as high as you want it to, because if you start to use accessory parts of you, and then see if you can get it up. Now we'll internally spiral, so roll from the shoulder and get the arm all the way up next to your ear, and now out to a high V. In the high V, externally rotate. That means turn the outer upper arm away from your chest through the elbow and then the wrist, and then bring that down. Now, when you get almost down, internally spiral. So from right where your shoulder root is, your arm and your shoulder joint, turn the arm in, bring the arm behind you as far as you can. And then palm will face away from you. Try not to let the shoulder roll too far forward. Keep the arm bone pulling onto your back. So no, we're just trying to isolate the joint without letting the joint cause excessive distortion. When you get the palm down, externally rotate, bring it across the heart without lifting the shoulder joint up towards your ear. Keep it level. And it might not go that high. And if it starts to get too hard, then you may have to bend your elbow so that you can move from the shoulder. You decide. And when you get up here, internally spiral. These are called CARs, controlled articulated range of motion. Externally spiral, bring it down. Internally spiral, reach it behind. And all the way down. And we'll switch. Right palm out and up. Squeeze your shoulder blades onto your back. Try not to move anything else. Neck, hips, head, and sweep it across. Lift it up. When it gets too hard to keep lifting an external spiral, give it an inner spiral and bring it alongside your ear. And from there, high V, external rotation, and bring it almost all the way down. And now an inner spiral, reach it behind and down by your hip, reach it behind. And this time we'll go external spiral and bring it across. Lift it up. Your end point, if you have pain at the end point, that's where you have to start to bend the elbow and then roll the arm in and get it up over. So all of these different range of motions. And then you go from up overhead, take it to a high V, externally spiral, and bring it down. And now the internal, reach it behind, and all the way back down. Now, if we switch arms, hands across the chest or rib cage, and we'll start with an internal spiral in the back posterior plane. See if you can externally spiral back there without compensation distortion. And then bring it level with your rib cage out to the side and up, high V. Internally spiral and bring it up over the head. From here in the overhead plane, externally spiral as you bring it across the heart and all the way down. Internally spiral, squeeze that arm bone into your shoulder, press the arm bone behind. There you go. Now externally spiral. Ooh, hard one. That one's hard. And out. And then high V, internally spiral. And along the ear. Now external spiral to bring it across. And down. And that should feel nice and hot. So if you're working the joint without letting the rest of the body take over, it builds heat rather quickly. So we'll internally spiral and reach the right arm behind. And using the root of the shoulder where your arm and your shoulder blade unite, externally spiral. Inhale, lift up. High V. Keep the shoulder blade on your back and internally spiral, arm over along the ear. Bring that across and external. And bring it down. And then internal, behind. And external. Now all this, you have pain at the end of a range of motion, you might, like I just did, I have to lower it down and externally spiral earlier, or bend it or bring it forward. So I can find the range of motion that's not full of discomfort. As, working through discomfort actually just stresses the body out and creates injury instead of strength. So release those blocks, take them down to the floor. And we'll come to all fours, hands and knees. Downward dog is one of the most ubiquitous poses in the Hatha Yoga tradition. And when you draw the arm bones into your shoulder, lift your knees. Now we've got arms in the overhead plane and the hands are fixed. So we can't externally or internally spiral the hand itself. What you can do is externally spiral the upper arm bone without moving the hands, as if you were trying to push the pinky finger out. And then what you need to do is radically push down and in to the index finger and thumb side of your hand so that you get a little inner spiral. Maintain that as you lift your knees, lift the hips, and then from the shoulders, push down through that inside edge of the hand, the index finger and thumb, as you continue to bring the arms in the overhead plane for downward dog. A lot of people with really tight shoulders have a lot of inward spiral when the arms are in the overhead plane and not enough shoulder blades on their back. So we'll work on that. Inhale to your knees. Exhale, child's pose. Please come to your belly. And we're going to take I never instruct this, so this is an unusual instruction for me. Bring your elbows really close back towards your outer ribs. So not with the shoulder over the elbow joint like Sphinx, but a Sphinx that feels too short. And then bring your forehead down. In the Sphinx that is too short, the side body's got short, and that's oftentimes like my neck already hurts. I don't like it. Does not feel good. So inhale and come up. And walk the elbows a little more forward and a little wider so that the crease of your elbow lines up, the middle of it lines up with your outer upper arm. Maintain that. Drag the elbows back and pull the armpit forward towards your fingertips. And then you'll notice you can't get your head all the way down. Well, I can't without discomfort here or lifting my ribs off the floor. And that's okay. Just notice. But when you lower your head, I don't have neck pain. That feels good. So side body's long will keep us out of in range of motion with the neck and the shoulder joint where we have a little healthier. So now we're going to take one block out in front of you, turn it, and it might be on medium or low. But what I'd like you to be able to do is extend that left arm out and the pinky side of your wrist down onto the block. Keeping the head up just for a moment to be able to watch, figure out where you need to slide your grounded arm so that you can get your head down without any neck pain. And that might also mean the block with the hand on it has to go more towards a high V instead of directly alongside your ear. Another way to take pain away from the neck, this one's good, is your look up and you'll see if you push the ulnar side of your wrist, that's your pinky side, down into the block and try to float your armpit away from the floor. So now we're pulling the arm bone into the shoulder socket. And you're going to bring your head down and see if you have good mobility. So you've got some strength in the joint and enough range of motion to bring your head down. Now here's the big litmus test. Can you, right where the back of your arm and your shoulder blade meet, can you strengthen there? Can you squeeze the muscle? And then potentially keeping the head down, lift your wrist and your thumb straight up. And some of you will, some of you will not. If you can, lift your wrist off the block, then take the block one level higher. So I went from low to medium. Press the wrist down, float the armpit, and see if you can get your head down without any discomfort at all, without bending the elbow at all. If you have to bend your elbow, lower the block. And now as I'm pressing my wrist down into this block and lifting my armpit, I'm starting to shake, which is a sign that I have the range of motion, but not necessarily the strength. And I'm going to squeeze the muscle, keep the head down, strengthen your core and your pelvic floor, and maybe you could lift that arm up without any pain in your neck or distortion in the rest of your body. And if not, that's fine, don't worry about it. If you could lift your hand off the block, and some of you will, you may need 2 blocks now. So you'll stack 2. And you're going to find where is your end point range of motion, where you cannot lift your arm and but you're not in pain. You're not compensating. And we can also try to get the arm more in alignment straight up alongside the ear. So there's lots of places to play around and tweak. And root the base of the wrist, float the armpit, deepen your breath. So Ujjayi Pranayama is your friend here telling you if you're actually honoring a range of motion that is in balance. And release. And then bring that hand down so that both hands are where they would be for chaturanga or cobra. Push the hands down, slide the armpits forward. And now lift the sides of your neck and the base of your head a little bit. Root the tailbone and curl up cobra. And one arm feels radically different than the other arm. And lower down, lift up, downward dog. Oh, and the arm that we just worked feels much more like a participating citizen in this downward dog for me. Inhale to your knees. Let's take chest and chin, and then a little cobra here. And all the way down. Find your other side. We'll start low and work up. Where's your sphinx? The sphinx where you can, your side bodies feel long and you can get your forehead to the floor. From there, take the appropriate placement of the block. Start on low. Figure out if it's going wider to high V or directly in line with your ear. Root the wrist. puff the armpit, and you want to try to lift the inner deltoid, outer deltoid, and your elbow, pointy part of your elbow, the olecranon, all at the same rate. Keep pressing down. If this is where your range of motion ends, then you will hold this. It's an active stretch, and you'll hold it. And if you feel like you want to test it, strengthen the back of the shoulder joint and try to lift the wrist as high as your shoulder. If that's easy, turn the block up and see about finding your endpoint range of motion, rooting the wrist, floating the elbow, inner deltoid, outer deltoid, root down, root down, root down. Breathe, keeping the head down and the armpit lofty. See if you can lift the wrist. If so, stack it up. Go a little higher. If not, just keep pushing down and floating the armpit so that you create more strength. Access Ujjayi Pranayama. And you do actually want to find the height of the blocks where you cannot lift your arm, and you will stay there and keep rooting the wrist down and floating the armpit and breathing and using this really maybe boring, but really powerful way to strengthen your shoulders so that when you want to go into a handstand or an arm balance, you've got the good mobility, strength, and range of motion to do so. And slowly push those blocks away. Place your hands where you would for cobra. Anchor the hands down by pushing them into the mat. Lift the head of the arm bone away from the floor and then crawl up. Lower the chest. Keep pressing down and use the backside of your shoulder and your core strength. Lift your rib cage up, push down. Nice. Plant the hands. Now here's a good one. Push the hands down and try to float the armpits away from the floor. Maintain that and also try to pull the armpit forward. So drag the hands down and backwards energetically until you feel those armpits pull forward. Then lift your knees. From the shoulder blades, now push the hands down and forward as you stretch your hips up and back. And you'll feel your shoulder blades holding you. And hopefully downward dog feels like you've got more mobility, strength, combined with range of motion. Inhale, lift left leg up. And lower, inhale, right leg up. And lower. Inhale to your knees. Have a seat on your 2 blocks in Vajrasana. Pretty high up seat. Let's take your arms out, fists. We're almost done. Pull your arm bones into your shoulder socket. Imagine your hands are on a shelf. They can't move. The wrists, the hands are not going to lower, down, or up. They're fixed. And we'll squeeze the shoulder blades in and onto your back, and then depress the shoulder blades down, and then push them forward and elevate the shoulder blade and pull them back and down. Now, a lot of weird things might start happening with your neck and your head, and you might notice the arms moving up and down. They're going to stay fixed. So now, arm bones into shoulder. We'll start by elevating and then reaching and then depressing and then retracting and then elevating and protracting and bringing down and back And now arms in the side plane. And then this one's harder. So if you need to bring them slightly forward, you will. And you'll pull the arm bones into your shoulder, depress the shoulder blade, reach them forward off the back, elevate, retract, depress, protract, and lift. So there's no internal or external rotation of the arm happening. It's all shoulder blade. And so the wider the arms, the harder that action gets. So if you're finding weird actions happening here, then you're going to have to decrease the range of motion. Sorry to be the bearer of truth. Yeah. Yeah. Now, the hardest one I find to not actually do any compensation is this one: up, back, down, and forward, which seems like it's the easiest one, but your neck starts to do weird stuff. So keep the chin lifted and the head pulled back. Elevate, retract, depress, protract, elevate, retract, depress, protract, and come to neutral. Elevate, protract, bring the shoulders off the back, depress, retract, elevate. Good job. And then circle that out, hands behind your head, deep breath in, a little twist to the left, deep breath, inhale, center, a little twist to the right, inhale, center. We could keep going for days. I've got range of motion exercises for your neck, for your thoracic spine, for your lumbar spine. But today we got to really isolate and find range of motion through spirals and through integration and contraction. So let your hands float, or your arm bones float, by resting your hands where the arms drape right out of your shoulder socket. So you don't want those shoulders to roll forward or be too far back. And you're going to let the side bodies hold you in length, and your shoulder blades hold you in strength. Let your head be a natural extension of your spine as you close your eyes. And hopefully you're feeling a good sense of lightness, buoyancy. Or if you take a natural and long, deep breath into your lungs, you're going to feel a really good, healthy movement where the shoulder girdle naturally expands, but also rises without you having to do anything except breathe. And then as you take a natural long exhalation, you'll feel a natural receding of the shoulder girdle. So it goes for the ride on the strength of who you are on the inside. Please draw your hands to heart center. And we'll finish this very unique range of motion practice for the glenohumeral joint with just drop into a sense of gratitude. Isn't it beautiful and sweet that we can reach into life, draw life into us, hold it with reverence, and move with sincerity? We'll close with an Om. Honor your breath. And with your exhalation, a nice long Om. Oh. Namaste. Thank you. Much love and appreciation. If you have questions, comments, I'm up for discussion, and I love it.